Hello, this is Brandon Todd Jackson. I am a former data scientist. Back in 2015, I got a master's in predictive analytics, and right now, with the wave of large language models, predictive analytics is just not enough. What I'm doing, I see thousands of data scientists, and they're actually transitioning, trying to figure out how do they build something for themselves? How do they use this advance in large language models to make something beneficial for themselves and for the people who are actually struggling, who don't have any technical expertise, and they're trying to figure out how do I make something of value. I'm going through a series where I'm just building a personal portfolio of all of the work that I've done over the years in terms of the data science and this transition into the systems architect role using nothing but large language models and natural language. So far, we built out a website using GitHub for source control, Vercel for deployment and hosting, and then I used Cursor AI to actually build the Next.js project. And the last few things that we did, we implemented Framer Motion. The website, it looks nice. So if you look at the home, case studies, process, and contact, everything looks good so far, but there's a few things that I want to actually update. The case studies, this is more so about eCommerce, data analytics, dashboards, ML deployment. This is a portfolio, so I'm gonna strip all of this away eventually, and then I'm going to add projects that are pointing to actual websites and AI-powered digital products that I've built over time. This goes through my process. I like it, it's nice and sleek. We have a free AI systems readiness checklist because this is going to be serving as a lead magnet. And so we still have some work to do in terms of the lead magnet, how to actually set up the automation to support this. We created a carousel of all the recommendations that I've received over the years from LinkedIn, and you'll see it's clunky, it's all over the place. So there's some aesthetics that still need to be updated. I have a book of discovery call. I'm going to integrate this with cal.com instead of Calendly, but I am walking through this entire process. The thing that I actually want to focus on now, we have a website that was built, and you can go and it said Brandon Todd Jackson. I showed you the development process of looking at how to develop on your local dev, test everything, and then push it to a remote repository. And then that trigger a deployment to an actual website. But what's missing right now? There's still room for improvement. Now, the console, when you're developing, is going to be your best friend. It's going to tell you if you have any errors, so I don't have any errors, but the one thing that I am noticing is that when I'm in a mobile app design, things, they look okay on a web, but when you're actually on the phone, when I scroll down a little bit further, bam, look at this. This is ugly, all right? And so I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Now the question is, okay, you have a website, but does it look good on mobile? We have some evidence that we have to fix something. So I'm gonna go in, I'm in Cursor. You wanna make sure that whenever you're in Cursor, your context remains minimum. I wanna say around 45 to 50%, go ahead and switch over to a new chat. And so if you haven't seen all the previous videos, I recommend that you start on square one. I'll link the videos in the description. But here we have Cursor. Again, this is an IDE. An IDE is a place where I can actually develop for my web application. And so what I want to do now, I'm going to give it a picture of the website, but I need to do a little bit of research. If I'm not a seasoned developer, I actually don't know where to start with this. And so I have a context file that I'm using in order to do a little bit of steering. But I need to go off and I need to do a little bit of research in terms of what are the design principles for mobile app development, web app development, and responsiveness, because I want a website that's responsive to changes, all right? And so the first thing that I want to actually do, I want to go to Perplexity. And I'm using Perplexity because Perplexity is really the OG in terms of web search and figuring out recent developments in whatever domain of development that you're configuring for. And so for me, I'm working on a Next.js project. I noticed that it isn't responsive. I have a few cards that whenever you collapse it to a mobile application, they are stacked on top of each other. Can you look at the best practices as of November 2025 to create more responsive website in Next.js, all right? So I'm gonna let this run for a second. And this is just my first step. Again, the goal is to be able to create something of value without using any coding, all right? But knowing a little bit about the actual tech stack and the language and the syntax and actually how to execute some commands to keep things moving, it is essential. All right, so now I have some information. I am not going to spend the time reading into it because I actually have a project that I've set up. And so now I'm going to go over to Claude really quick. The portfolio is the project that I set up. Again, this is on the first video. I'm going to say, hey, I'm trying to solve a problem for the Next.js project that is in the README file. I've gone off and I've done some research. Can you create a first principle based checklist that tells me how to fix this mobile responsiveness issue for this specific project? All right. And then once again, I want to take one more screenshot of the actual application. So I'm gonna go back to the website, Brandon Todd Jackson. I am going to take a screenshot of this. All right, and I'm gonna give this to Claude. And then I'm actually gonna add one instruction that says use first principles thinking / design. I'm gonna save this instruction and then trying to solve a problem with Next.js, checklist, create a markdown file. All right, so I'm gonna let this run and it's gonna create a markdown file that I am then gonna add to the context in Cursor. Boom, boom. So this is running, and while this runs, I'll hop back over into Cursor. And so essentially what I'm going to do, this context, I'm going to go ahead and add a file, and I'm gonna say mobile, I'm just gonna say responsive design.md. All right, and so when Claude finishes, I'm actually going to take this and I'm gonna drop it back into Cursor, and then I'm going to build a plan to execute on it. And again, I'm going to use sequential thinking in order to make this. Sequential thinking is an MCP server that is a godsend. I absolutely love it. It takes complex projects and it boils it down to a step-by-step process to where you can see the chain of thought and the reasoning behind the steps that it's taking. Whenever you're actually creating these projects, you want to make sure that you're reading fully through everything that it tells you. But for the sake of this video and time and trying to deliver value as quickly as possible, the mobile responsiveness fixed checklist, testimonial carousel, core problem, fundamental truths, fixed checklist, text sizing and hierarchy. And so it goes through a few things and it explains how it needs to actually be resolved. So now in this new chat, I'm going to say using at first principles and responsive design, can you resolve this issue with, again, now we're going to go in and we're going to look at the actual about, case studies, contact, footer, hero, navigation, problem, testimonials. Testimonials is where this is going to be held at. So in the testimonials, again, the components is the design for your website. So it's broken out into multiple pieces so that you have isolation, and then the index wraps it all together so that you can have isolated problem solving and triage. Use sequential thinking, MCP. All right, and then I'm actually going to create a plan. This is a native cursor. This is a native cursor functionality that I'm doing a double dip in terms of building the plan within Cursor, but I'm using sequential thinking to resolve this as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and press play. So what's gonna happen is gonna build a plan. I'm gonna read through it and I'm gonna decide, okay, is this plan sufficient? And if it's sufficient, I'm gonna run with it. So this is gonna build really quick and bring this out so that we don't get distracted. All right, so it went through the chain of thinking, and then it's building a plan over on the right-hand side. It's saying, okay, the problem analysis, current violations, implementation plan, update card with layout. So it goes through a very detailed plan, and it's telling you specifically what needs to be fixed. All right, and so I also want to show you that in the sequential thinking, what it does, okay, starting with first principles analysis, it gives you the core problem, and this is just one in a chain of 8 thoughts. Then it goes off to the next thought, reviewing the current testimonial implementation, and then continuing on breaking down the fundamental truths about what must be true for the mobile testimonials. And then the final one is what it uses. The final solution architecture is what it uses to feed the build in Cursor. All right, so I'm going to take this as truth and I'm going to go ahead and build this thing. All right. The issue is that these cards, whenever you're actually on a mobile application, it just doesn't look right. It's terrible, actually. And so if you're proud of your project and you didn't do the due diligence, it looks good on web, but oftentimes you're sharing via mobile, hey, check out my website. Someone, if you're linking it in your LinkedIn profile, they're on their mobile device. And so if you're saying this is the portfolio of my work, and then it looks bad on mobile, you have an issue. You've already lost this person. They don't trust you anymore. It's going through all of the changes. And so I'm going to say, can you run npm run build? All right. And so the point of this is to figure out, is there any issues that you created when you actually created this thing, whenever you did the update? And once this passes, I'm going to, if it passes, if it doesn't pass this, it's going to go through a loop of iterations. The agents in here are going to figure out what's going on and what's wrong. The build completed successfully. Now I'm going to say, can you start the dev server? If anything is running on port 3000, go ahead and kill and restart it. All right. So this is running. You have a terminal here and you can add more terminals. And so this same command that's over here, I can just copy and paste it and put it in here, and I wouldn't be charged for the agent running this command for me. And so this command, the npm run dev, is something that you're going to be running a lot. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this thing run. All right, so the dev server is running on port 3000. So let's go ahead and take this over to the actual, let's do a side-by-side comparison, drop this in. And so now we have the local host version. I'm going to inspect this page and I'm gonna put it on the mobile version. All right, so the responsiveness, that as I scroll down, what we should see is that it's resolved the issue. You notice that on the actual website, the diagnose, design, deploy, it was stacked from left to right. But on mobile, it cascades it top down. So this is good. We have the pictures coming in. Done. All right. So it is better. All right. So now what I will actually say, I'm going to take a screenshot of this. And the next thing that I'm actually going to say is, okay, we've done some improvement. All right, so the mobile responsiveness updates worked, but the carousel, it should show one carousel at a time whenever it's on mobile. Yeah, so essentially what I'm showing is that it's cut off whenever you're looking at it from the mobile perspective. There we go. Actually, that isn't working the way I need it to work. Oh, and it actually fixed it. It fixed it in background while I was actually trying to take a picture of it. So this is the dev server. So everything that you do in your local host is instantaneous updates. All right. So we see that we've already fixed this. So this is beautiful. We're moving, made updates to ensure only one card is visible on mobile. The changes should take effect immediately with hot reload. Can you run npm run build? All right. We will know that we have fixed the mobile responsiveness issue in our website. And the way that we did that, we went to Perplexity and we figured out, okay, what are people doing now? Next.js is November of 2025. What is the most recent updates in terms of responsive design? Then we went to Claude. It was our project where we had the actual README and some supporting documents in terms of what we're actually building. And we asked Claude to create a markdown file. Then we dropped the markdown file inside of our context and we referenced it and we built the plan within Cursor using their native build plan and sequential thinking and first principles. And so in the matter of 17 minutes, we were able to resolve this problem. So now I'm going to say stage and commit, modify files and push to remote. Okay, and remember, this is the version control. So as we're moving, we now have a new checkpoint. All right, so if something was to break as we move forward, we can just roll back to this most recent checkpoint. So the changes are now in the remote repository. And so what we should see is if we go to Vercel, and I'm gonna bring up Vercel, is that this portfolio is deploying a new update. So I'm gonna go over to deployments, and you'll see that it's building. And so now, essentially what's happening is I'm taking this local update and I'm pushing it to the internet. And right here is telling you the source from GitHub. I pushed it to the main branch and fixed testimonial carousel mobile responsiveness. All right. And now it says it's ready. If I were to go back to the actual website and I do a refresh now, what do we see? Boom. We see everything that we needed to see, and this is how it's going to look on mobile. So we've done a full triage process to where we actually took top level developer skills. You would have had to pay someone maybe $100 to $200 of their time to actually figure this out, but just with natural language, we were able to figure out how do we update and fix this issue.